Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're going to review the cell structures. Today we're going to take a look at the differences between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell, and then we'll look at the differences between a plant and an animal cell. We're going to start off with a prokaryotic cell. I'm going to give you a chance to write the structures down. If you want to pause the video for a moment, you can, and then we'll start our tour. First of all, one of the things that you'll notice is that in a prokaryotic cell there is no nucleus. Now they do have a chromosome, but they only have one chromosome, and it's in an area that is referred to as a nucleoid. Now they do have ribosomes. Ribosomes are places where proteins are made, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment, as well as cytoplasm, which is a fluid-like substance that's filling in the cell. All prokaryotes have a cell membrane that contains everything inside of the cell. Most of them have cell walls, and some of them might have a capsule that surrounds all of that. It's possible that some prokaryotic cells have flagella, certainly not all of them do. And they all contain a very small piece of DNA separate from the chromosome known as a plasmid. We're going to talk more about plasmids when we get into genetics later on this year. For eukaryotic cells, of course, these are cells that have a nucleus. And I'll give you a moment to write down the names of all of these structures. Again, if you need to pause the video, please do so, and then we'll take our tour. This is an animal cell. An animal cell is a type of eukaryotic cell, and all eukaryotic cells contain a nucleus. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear envelope, and of course in the nucleus are the chromosomes. Within the nucleus there can also be a smaller structure called the nucleolus, which means little nucleus. These typically will contain RNA. Surrounding the cell is a cell membrane holding everything together. The cell membrane is said to be selectively permeable. So what that means is that it will allow certain things in and out. Other things cannot get in or out of the cell. And we'll talk more about that later as well. The animal cell also contains ribosomes. Ribosomes are the site of protein production. They don't actually make the proteins, but it's the place where the proteins are made. We also have in the cells endoplasmic reticulum. There's two types. There's smooth endoplasmic reticulum, or smooth ER for short, and then there's the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or the rough ER. The difference between them, the rough ER has ribosomes attached, the smooth ER does not. In an animal cell, there's also a Golgi complex. The Golgi complex's job is to take proteins that were made on those ribosomes, they process them, and they package them up and get them ready to be shipped out of the cell. The lysosomes are small vesicles that came from the Golgi complex but never left. They contain very powerful digestive enzymes that can be used to destroy foreign substances that might get into the cell, for instance, a bacteria or a virus. The cell is loaded with mitochondria. Mitochondria is the place where cell respiration takes place. So this is where the food that we eat eventually goes to, and we can take that apart and get energy from it. Not shown on the diagram because it's so small is the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton gives the animal cell its shape. There are centrioles. Centrioles are used in the process of cell division, and again we'll talk more about that later on as well. And then it's possible that some animal cells could have cilia or flagella. Cilia are small hair-like structures. Flagella are just longer versions of cilia. Now if we compare this to the plant cell, we see that there's a lot of similar structures. And again, go ahead and pause the video and write down the structures listed. Many of the structures that you see in the plant cell are exactly the same as you see in the animal cell. They look the same, they all have the same function. For instance, the nucleus, the nuclear envelope, the nucleolus. There's smooth ER and rough ER. There's a cell membrane. There's ribosomes. There's the Golgi complex and mitochondria. There's cytoplasm in the plant cell. But there's a few other structures. For instance, there's a vacuole. A vacuole is a large organelle, and it's a place where the waste products will go. Plants don't have a way of getting rid of waste like animals do, and so they simply store it for the entire lifespan. There's also a cell wall. Most plant cell walls are made up of cellulose, which is an outside covering around the cell membrane, gives the plants its shape. More importantly, it contains chloroplast. Chloroplast is where photosynthesis occurs, and that is where plants can absorb energy from the sun and change that into food that they can then use to get energy from. Let's compare these, shall we? In prokaryotic cells, they don't have a nucleus, whereas eukaryotic cells do. Prokaryotic cells don't have any membrane-bound organelles, whereas eukaryotic cells do have these membrane-bound organelles. And real quickly, membrane-bound organelles are things like the mitochondria, the chloroplast, the Golgi complexes, the rough and smooth ER. Prokaryotic cells only have one chromosome, and although we can't say that there's a specific number of chromosomes in eukaryotic cells, at least in sexually reproducing cells, we know that they come in pairs, so there's going to be an even number of chromosomes. How are they alike? Well, they both have these ribosomes. They both also are contained by a cell membrane. They both have similar metabolism, so all those chemical reactions that are taking place in prokaryotic cells, we also see them happening in eukaryotic cells. And lastly, they both have DNA as their basic molecule for life. There are other differences and similarities, but these are certainly the main ones. And I can't wait to get into class tomorrow, and we're going to take a look at some prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells under the microscope and do a little bit more comparisons. See you then.